But I think that leads us to another interesting question that's not just related to COVID, but how much should higher education really cost? So I can tell you from experience, the US, I paid quite a bit. Luckily, I did not have to take out any loans, but what I paid is actually much lower than what students nowadays in the US have to pay for university. I'm kind of wondering, in Germany, did you all see an increase in those fees that you had to pay, or has it mostly stayed level? Because I was always questioning about this. So the US, we've seen like an increase in the amount of fees that students have to pay due to a variety of issues. But in Germany, is it the case, or have you mostly stayed level in terms of those fees that students have to pay?
So our fees are ridiculously low because education is free unless you go to a private uni, for example. If you would go to a private school, then you pay the private uni fee, which is similar to the UK, the US, and so on. But most universities, they have fees for like, how to say, you pay a fee for like processing, for administrative work, which is like 56 euros per semester or something like this. So you don't pay like $10,000 or something for your education, or I don't know how much it is. You don't pay that much unless you studied, while I studied between 2004 and 2009 or so. That was like the trial when in Germany, when they said, now we're going to charge. And I actually had to take out a loan for studying. After that, I think after 2010 or 11 or so, when my sister started to study, who was like a lot younger than me, she studies without that again. So she pays way less. I think you pay, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if someone from Germany watching this later down the road, I think you pay a maximum of, I don't know, maybe 500 euro per, I paid 500 euro per semester back then. So right now I would assume it's like 100 something, I'm guessing. So it's definitely not comparable to how much you pay in the US or even here in Thailand, because the fees in Thailand are also not that cheap.
Because actually, there's an interesting question I had there is because from what I saw, it looks like unless you go to a private university, you have to kind of pay a lot of fees. But are there anyone who goes to those private universities? I'm just curious because it seems to me like if it's already kind of viewed as, and it sounds to me like higher education is viewed as kind of a public service that everyone should have access to, why then would people go to the private universities? So is there anything that the private universities offer that make them more appealing that would then convince a student to pay more fees? Like, how do the private universities really function? Because I would think that they would be at a real competitive disadvantage, but how does that all work out?
So I haven't been to a private uni, but from what I see, because I was wondering the same thing. So there are lots of private universities that have maybe a different target audience. So if it's a very competitive field, for example, where it's a grade based, whether or not you get accepted. So for example, for what I studied back then, I think you need to have like a GPA of 2.0, which is very good. Like in Germany, the highest GPA would be 1.0. It's the best grade you can get. So you could have maximum of 2.0. If anything lower than 2.0, like 2.5, 3, it goes down until like 6 is the hardcore fail. So anything lower than a 2, which would be then maybe translated like anything lower than a B, you would not be accepted to the program. You wouldn't even be invited to the admission interview, right? So then maybe if you want to study something like this, the private unis are like, well, come here, pay the fee and study the subject that you want to study. Maybe the uni isn't as renowned, but therefore private universities usually are very good at networking. So then they establish connections with universities in the UK, for example, and they have like dual master degrees or whatever, things that we also sell here in Thailand and at different unis. Like you get 2 degrees for the price of 1. Let's just come here, pay this huge fee, and then take away 2 degrees. So it's a marketing thing, I believe, and also international students, I believe, who want to study in Germany and who maybe are used to paying those fees. And because if you Google international programs in Germany, English-speaking programs in Germany, you will very easily land on those private unis, because those old school universities, they're not that great at marketing, and especially not in English.
Yeah, that you make a good point there. And actually, international education has started to really increase. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of universities, I think Australia and UK realize this before the
Yeah.
others, is that you can get a lot, not just in tuition fees, but they're going to be spending money on shopping, on all that. I don't remember if it was called education tourism or something, but they basically said a lot of revenue comes in from your international students. So that's a really good point there. But I think it leads to this whole issue of entry to university because, I mean, we see it here. Let's not kid ourselves. We see it here. Some international students are really conscientious about getting the most out of their education, but we still see a few, not many, but a few students who are here to mainly see Thailand, to travel around. They're paying the fees so that they can stay here for a prolonged period. So that leads us to kind of this interesting conundrum in terms of entry to university. Should we be super selective, but then if we become so selective, we don't allow people in who maybe are really serious about studying? Versus making it, as you said, the private university said, can you pay? Yes. Okay, you're in. So how do we balance between that? Because I think education, and I am sure we'll kind of get into this in the next kind of discussion, education is not really great if you just show up to the classroom. Like it just doesn't work that way. So how do you view that balance in terms of entry? Because we have like all these different kinds of universities that, to my knowledge, most of them are pretty well reputable and quality enough, though some are more quality than others, of course. But how should we view like higher education and entry? Because I think standards, and you and I both talk about this, standards are important, but standards aren't just about GPA. So what's your take?
Yeah. So I think, well, so since I'm from Germany, I might have a more German mindset, even though I left Germany 10 years ago or so. So I think I'm more internationalized by now. But one thing that I still hold on to is that back home in Germany, you don't need a uni degree to do like a job. Like, for example, like I said last time, before I went to university, I worked in a bank. I did a trainee, like after high school, I went into a trainee program for a bank. And if I would have chosen to stay there, I could have worked in a bank. Here in Thailand, you need a bachelor's degree to work in a bank. And it's like, why? So why do you need to have a uni degree for every little thing? I think, but that's, I mean, we can't change it. But I think if it's like, if, I don't know, I don't want to call it normal work, if like more applied work would be more easily accessible via maybe trading schools being like a more acceptable thing, maybe this would help so that you don't need a university degree for everything. And then I would say make the entrance, and now people are going to hate on me and delete me on Facebook, make the entrance a little bit harder. Like give the people, the students, potential students, the chance to show that they really want to study this program. Like you heard me talk about this all the time in those courses that we took together at our Stanford thing that you might mention later down the road. I'm a big fan of Randy Pausch, who always mentioned those brick walls. Like if someone gives you a hurdle, yeah, then that's not to keep you out, it's to give you the chance to show you how badly do you want in. And I think if you just accept everybody, then also you water down the student body basically. And if you make just a few hurdles that they have to overcome, then maybe you get more students who really want to be there. Maybe they don't have the highest GPA from their high school because not everybody performs well in exam settings. So I'm not saying look only at the GPA. I'm saying maybe create some entrance admission experiences that will then later show you who really deserves to be there.